There is something wrong. Shouldn't you already know? Should've spelled it out. Let me put it in a song. Every time you make that face like crawling toward damaged space, out of sync and out of tune, a frequency I can't undo. Please listen close.
Hello, and welcome to FFS. I'm Paulina Galindo, and I'm back to read the horribly written stories for you once again. Tonight, we're going to be doing something a little different. Before we get to the main story of the episode, we're going to go back and touch on one of our earlier stories, the Supreme Court, because as it seems, we released that story too soon. Seriously, who the fuck would know that it could get worse? I mean, that's pretty much the premise of our show, so I guess we should have, but holy shit. So in a 63 ruling, the corrupt justices ruled that their bribery wasn't in fact illegal. Seriously? Instead of cleaning up their act, they just ruled that as long as the bribe is given after the fact, it's all good. What the fuck? And if it wasn't fucking enough, they ruled that presidents have total immunity when it comes to official acts. That doesn't sound too bad, but given that it's such a subjective term, who's to say what is an official act? Is gunning down your opponents to seize power an official act? I guess we'll see. Seriously though, two of the nastiest judges on the court are two of its oldest. Both Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito are rapidly approaching retirement, with both of them well into their 70s. It is a distinct possibility that the next president will place two judges on the bench. So if you're sick of these shitty rulings after shitty rulings, make sure the person you vote for will place justices that hold the same values as you, or at least won't be fucking corrupt as shit. And speaking of shitty democracy destroying Supreme Court cases, let's move on to tonight's main story, Citizens United. Nice segue. I guess the writers can stay another week. So Citizens United, what is it? What has it done and how can we fix it? Citizens United were a political group who were upset with Michael Moore's 2004 documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, claiming that it was unfair to President Bush's handling of 9/11 and its response. In turn, they cobbled together a documentary titled Celsius 4111.
Time is not on our side. I will not wait on events while dangers gather. I will not stand by as peril draws closer and closer. The war on terror will not be won on the defensive.
Any attack will be met with a swift and a certain response.
If we wait for threats to fully materialize, we will have waited too long.
I would vote for a single-celled organism over George W. Bush.
The temperature that the brain begins to die? Fucking brilliant. Well, they plan to play this on DirecTV right before the 2004 election between George W. Bush and John Kerry, but were blocked because Citizens United weren't a bona fide commercial filmmaker, and Celsius 4111, God, that's a fucking mouthful, and that pile of garbage was little more than an hour-long campaign ad for Bush. So if it was a campaign ad, then it violated election laws that govern how much can be spent on campaign advertisements. You see, there used to be a cap on how much a single person can donate on a campaign, and businesses, they couldn't contribute at all. This was in place to keep elections fair, and so the American people knew exactly where the money that influenced our elections came from. Sounds great, right? Well, not to Citizens United it didn't, and they sued. And in 2010, the case finally got before the Supreme Court, who, in typical Supreme style, decided to nuke our democracy. You see, the question at hand was whether or not their films could be shown right before an election, and honestly, there is a First Amendment case there. This seems like something not too well defined and open to abuse. Seriously, who's to say who's a bona fide filmmaker? The problem was that the corrupt court didn't limit itself to that question. They ruled that not only should those shit films be shown, but there shouldn't be any limits on what a separate entity should be able to say or how they collect funds. This opened a way for super PAC groups that could endlessly fundraise from anywhere, and as long as they didn't directly donate their money to a campaign, they could use that money to sway elections however they saw fit, as long as they don't directly donate to the campaign themselves. Want to produce a multi-million-dollar film about the horrors of abortion and run it the night before an election? That's fine, no problem. Want to get a bunch of billionaires together and flood the airwaves with pro-Biden ads for weeks leading up to an election? That's cool too.
You know, first of all, let's talk about what these super PACs are. They are supporters of these candidates who are allowed to donate significant amounts of money, whether it be by way of ads or cash, without the candidate's direct involvement, right? And
you have to put this in,
some
historical context. Since the 1970s, after Watergate, only candidates really have been able to advertise right before an election with what they call express advocacy. Elect this guy, defeat this guy. In 2010, Supreme Court and another court changed the rules essentially. And now for the first time in 30 years, we have a situation in which any group of people can come in with unlimited dollars. They can actually be supported by the candidate, and that the candidate can come to their fundraisers, although he can't actually ask for the check. They can say publicly that they're going to follow the strategy of the candidate, even if they don't talk privately with the candidate. And they can advertise with as much money as they want right up to the day of the election. So you have now a situation in which the actual candidate campaigns that are in South Carolina are not advertising with as much money as the super PACs supporting the candidates.
Yeah, with that Citizens United ruling, these super PACs are now outspending the presidential campaigns themselves. That's absolutely disgusting. So much, in fact, that it came up during the 2016 presidential primaries. Watch this plucky young outsider talk about the problems with super PACs.
Super PACs are a disaster. They're a scam. They cause dishonesty, and you better get rid of them because they are causing a lot of bad decisions to be made by some very good people. And I'm not blaming these folks, but I guess I could. Very good people are making very bad decisions right now. And if anything comes out of this whole thing with some of these nasty and ridiculous questions, I will tell you, you better get rid of the super PACs because they're causing a big problem with this country. Not only in dishonesty and what's going on, but also in a lot of bad decisions that are being made for the benefit of lobbyists and special interests.
Yep, that's Stormy's ex right there. And I feel physically sick that we're actually agreeing with him, but we could have not said it better ourselves. I mean, I guess we could have. Agent Orange sounds like a 2-year-old going off on a sugar-fueled fever dream, but the main points are there. Super PACs are bad, and we need to get rid of them. Now, of course, the Nadeed there has been mysteriously quiet about the topic now that he's a major beneficiary of super PACs because he's nothing but a fucking hypocrite who will say whatever it takes to get elected, then deliver on none of it. But that's a separate issue. Now, as nasty as these super PACs are, they are not the worst offender of the rules created by the ruling. That dubious award goes to dark money nonprofits. Now, these two types of organizations tend to get conflated in the news, but they're not the same. With super PACs, they at least have to report to the FTC who their donors are. So there's the tiniest bit of accountability there that the American public can at least see who exactly is paying for the ads. That doesn't apply to 501c charities. They're not required to publicly identify where any of their money came from. This includes groups like the NRA. Yeah, the NRA doesn't have to disclose any of their donors. That's probably why they were infiltrated by the Russians a few years back.
The Department of Justice arrested and charged a 29-year-old Russian national for working as an unregistered foreign agent Monday. Federal officials, not the special counsel, handed down the indictment against Maria Butina as President Trump met with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland. The charges allege Butina tried to advance Russian interests through her relationship with the National Rifle Association. Last fall, CBS News learned Butina worked closely with Alexander Torshin, a Russian also tied to the NRA. Butina's lawyer responded to the allegations. He wrote in part, quote, Maria Butina is not an agent of the Russian Federation, saying she was simply a student working to promote a better relationship between the U.S. and Russia.
Yep, the fucking NRA was infiltrated by Maria Butina, a Russian spy to advance Russian interests, and these fuckers aren't required to disclose who their donors are? That's fucking insane. And this is brought to you by just another shitty Supreme Court decision. This wasn't something we voted on, or something that the Founding Fathers enshrined in our Constitution, or even a law enacted by duly elected politicians. 5 unelected men decided it was so, and now our democracy is crumbling because of it. Fuck! Now, like I said, this election is probably one of the most important in decades because whoever gets elected in November will most likely have 2 Supreme Court picks, and those assholes have more to say over your life than the president ever will. And with that, I'm Paulina Galindo. Thank you for watching, and make sure to tune in next week when we talk about the VA. Thank you, and good night.